Hi guys, welcome back to Hanging Out with Lori. How are you? I hope you are doing well today. I am excited for this video. This video was requested by one of my subscribers, Leah. She requested that I do the eyeshadow palette tag that was created by Allie Glines and Samantha March. I will have Allie and Samantha's links down below. If you have not seen their videos yet, go check them out. And if you would like to do this, please dive in and do it. I know that they would love to have this tag continue. A lot of people have done this tag. I am very late to this game, but if you haven't done it yet, jump in and do it. And tag me so I can come watch your video on your eyeshadow palette collection. So there are 13 categories in this tag. I tried not to have duplicate answers for the questions, so if you disagree with some of my answers, think another palette that I've mentioned would fit that category more. Just know I possibly could be agreeing with you. I just don't want to repeat the same palettes over and over, because if I did it that way, this would really be boring, because it truly would just have the same answers over and over. So let's dive in with the first one, and that is what is my newest eyeshadow palette. I actually have two. I purchased them at the same time. They came the same day, so I'm counting. They have to go together, unfortunately. They're by Colourpop. The first one is the It's All Good palette. I had wanted this for a very long time, and they had a sale, and so I picked it up. I haven't even... Have I swatched it? I don't think I've even swatched this. If I have, I've only swatched a couple of colors, and it still has that brand new smell to it. It's possible did I take it out? I did take it out the package to make sure it wasn't shattered, but yeah, isn't it the most beautiful palette? It's just absolutely stunning. I'm really into corals and yellows, and I like to mix the corals and yellows with pinks and purples. While pinks and purples really aren't my color, they're not my go-to jam, these corals and these yellows and these oranges and the neutral shades definitely are, and I like to mix those corals and yellows and oranges with pinks and purples. So, this one right here called Downtime, I want to swatch. I promised myself I would only swatch one shade out of each palette if I was even going to swatch it. So that's pretty. That's pretty. So that is It's All Good by Colourpop. The other palette I purchased at the same time as It's All Good is the All That palette. This had been on my wish list for a very long time, and when they had their sale, I decided to pick it up. It's just a nice, kind of darker, grungier palette, with reds and burgundies, wines. Very pretty. I have not swatched this one either. I may not have even looked at these, to be honest, because when they arrived I was really sick. So yeah, let's swatch this one right here. It's called Infatuation. It's this gorgeous red. Look at that. That's pretty. So It's All Good and All That are my newest palettes to my collection, and I really like both of them a lot. I think the color stories are beautiful, and I can't wait to play with them. My oldest palette is my e.l.f. Mad for Matte palette. It is the palette that was my Pan That Palette project for 2019, hence the empty pans and the pans that I do have on colors. I'm not quite sure why I still have this, to be honest with you. The only color I like in here is this one. That's the only one. The rest of them I'm not a fan of. So I may declutter this, depot this one and declutter it, or use up this one and declutter it. I don't know, I need to think about it, but it is my oldest and it's still in my collection, so it's in this tag video. My most expensive palette is my Jeffree Star Jawbreaker palette. I purchased a few of his palettes during a sale, and this was not on sale, but I picked it up all the same. So I paid full price for this palette, and I really like this palette. I love the color story. I like it in late spring, early summer. I just don't grab it and use just this palette. However, usually I'll grab it to use some of the shades in here, but not the palette as a whole for just one single look. But it definitely is my most expensive palette. The next one is your most affordable palette. I have 3 in this category, but that's because they're all Wet n Wild's quads. I have Dragon Scales. Is this Dragon Scales? Yes. Dragon Scales, Fit for a Queen, and then Hooked on Vinyl. When I purchased these, I paid $1.49. So they're definitely the cheapest ones I have. But even if I paid full price, I believe they're $2.99 on the website, so they would still be my most affordable eyeshadow palettes that I have. My everyday palette. My everyday palette is my City Mini Downtown Sunrise palette. This is the palette I grab if I'm going to go somewhere, if I'm traveling. This is what is with me. These are the colors, my everyday colors. So it's hard for me to say my everyday palette because I'm usually using a lot of singles and single eyeshadows out of different palettes to create a look. But if I was going somewhere, this would be what I threw in my bag for my everyday palette during travel, because these are definitely my 3 colors that I would use for a matte and then a pop of shimmer. That's what I prefer every day, is just a neutral brown look, and if I don't want just a matte look, I'll just pop a little bit of shimmer on my lid and I'm good to go. So this is definitely fits the bill for my everyday, but that palette is definitely what I would take if I was going somewhere. My most colorful palette, this is the category some may disagree with. I picked my Violet Voss Flamingos palette. My Jawbreaker palette would definitely fit here as well, except I already used it. So this is my Flamingos palette. It is very well loved. I love this palette, and I use it a lot in collabs for some reason, but I'm just really drawn to this palette, and I have kept it out on my desk and have been playing with it lately, and I've just really enjoyed it. It definitely has those colorful vibes that I like, the corals, the oranges, the yellows, with a mixture of, you know, blues and purples and pinks in there that just really, they're my jam this year. So my most colorful palette is the Violet Voss Flamingo palette. Your smallest palette, I have this tiny Smashbox Snap Queen Trio, and I have swatched it. That's all I've ever done with it. I've never used it, but it is so tiny. I don't know how I would get my brush in there, in especially these 2 pans, to use just those 2 pans. This one I can get my finger into it, but those other 2 is almost impossible to get my finger into. So this is my tiniest palette. It's cute. It's cute, and you know, the shadows are gorgeous, so I should play with it. I'm just not quite sure how to play with it, to be honest. My biggest palette, I actually have 2. They are tied for the most pans, and that's my Colourpop It's All Good palette, which I just showed you. And then my So Jaded palette by Colourpop and Kathleen Lights. This one was kind of in the running for most colorful. I think these jewel tones really make this palette pop, but it has more neutrals than the Flamingo's palette, so that's why I went with it. And it's also my largest, but this palette is wonderful to work with. I use it a lot in my Birthstone Beauties collab because the shades are pretty nice. This emerald is so pretty. I just shoved my finger into another one, of course. Isn't that gorgeous? The formula on these bigger palettes is wonderful. If you're hesitant to pick those up because they are bigger, you know, you have such a variety. And I like smaller palettes like my quads, but I also like to have these bigger palettes because I do get a little more variety. I get a lot more options than with smaller palettes. And so while these are bigger palettes, they're not ginormous. I definitely have palettes that are larger in size, but these are plenty good. But there's 32 pans in these palettes by Colourpop, and yeah, I like them. The next category is what eyeshadow palette has the best memory. And I said my BH Cosmetics Wild Child palette. I purchased this palette for my daughter-in-law a couple of years ago, but what I was doing is I sat on the floor at Ulta and swatched a whole bunch of different palettes when I was looking for one for her. She likes to apply her makeup with her fingers, and she doesn't like overly loud makeup. She wears very soft makeup when she wears it, and so I was looking for something that would fit her, you know, her style and what she likes to wear, how she likes to apply. And I ran across the BH Cosmetics Wild Child palette, and I fell in love with it for her. And after I sent her the palette, I said, do you mind if I purchase the Wild Child palette as well? And she's like, of course not, which I thought was nice. And she probably thought us a little weird to ask that, but I didn't want her to think, you know, I was copying what I sent her. But I fell in love with this palette. This orange right here, it's so pretty. It's just, look at that. Isn't that pretty? That beautiful shift. I don't use this palette as often as I should because all of these colors I truly love, but it's truly the story of the Wild Child palette that makes it have my heart. This is an older palette in my collection, but I'm not getting rid of it just yet. Not at all. Not even close. When it goes bad, I'll get rid of it, but right now it's still really good. This next category, the next two categories, I kind of had a difficult time with because there's a lot of them that I feel fit the first category, and I don't really keep ones that fit the second category. The first category is a palette that is worth the hype. I went with my Alamar Cosmetics Reina Caribai palette. I got this in a BoxyCharm a couple of years ago, but I love this palette. It is gorgeous. I love these earth tones over here, and I love these shimmers. This palette, the formula, it is gorgeous. I don't use it a whole lot, but when I want like a beautiful blue or teal, I grab this palette. I also love these two oranges especially. The color story is beautiful. The formula is beautiful. I mean, look at that blue. Isn't that just, it looks like water. And of course, the flip side of the worth the hype palette is a palette that is not worth the hype. And I really don't keep those palettes around if I don't like them. But I do have this one because I keep trying to like it because everybody loves it. And that is Milani's Bold Obsessions palette. And this is number 2. I don't know what that means. This is my only Milani. No, I do have another Milani palette my friend just sent me. I have tried and tried and tried to like this palette, to get it to work for me, and I struggle with it. You would think, looking at this palette, that I would really like it. These colors, this is my color story. These are the types of eyeshadows that I love. But like, I put this one on my eyes and it looks gray. Is that the one? Yeah. But when you swatch it, it doesn't look gray. But when I put it on my eyes, it looks gray. So yeah, I struggle with this. I don't think it's worth the hype. I find them hard to blend. I find them difficult to work with, and I don't find the colors to be true to the pan. But everybody likes this, so I feel like there's something wrong with me versus something wrong with the palette, so I still have it. Your favorite palette from a favorite brand, not your most favorite brand, but a favorite brand. And one of my favorite brands is IBY Beauty. I love them. I love their shadow formulas. I want to say I have a blush by them. Or is it a highlighter? It's a highlighter. And I just really like them. So my favorite palette by IBY Beauty is the Desert Vibes palette. I got this in some box, whether it's BoxyCharm, I can't remember, Allure. I don't think we got full-size palettes from Allure, but it's right up my alley, and I used this quite a bit when I first got it, and I haven't used it in probably like the past 6 months. But this is my vibe, these beautiful neutrals, and then you've got these pops of orange here. You even got this pink in here. This shadow right here is gorgeous. It's called Summertime, and it's just this beautiful, kind of like an antique gold shade. Isn't that pretty? Maybe, yeah, it's like an antique gold. So Desert Vibes is definitely my favorite, but the other two I have are just pretty much as close to Desert Vibes, if not the same, but I could only pick one. And I've used Desert Vibes more than I have the other two. So love IBY Beauty. And then the last category is your most used palette, and that is my BH Cosmetics Afternoon Rendezvous palette. This is a very well-loved palette. If I could find this and purchase a backup of it, I would. I love this palette very much. It's mostly neutrals, but you have pops of, purples, pinks, plums. Very well loved. There is not a single pan here that I haven't used. There's some with more dips than others, but there's definitely no unused pan in this palette. So that is my most used palette in my collection. I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you haven't done it and you want to do it, please do it and tag me so I can come watch you. And thank you to Leah for requesting this video. I had lots and lots of fun coming up with the answers to this, and it was a little hard. I will say it was a little hard. If you have any ideas for videos you would like to see me do, leave them down below. Like this one for Leah. I am happy to accommodate you guys with your requests if I can. Please take good care, be safe, be smart, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.